the integration looks like. So Chris, back to you, my friend.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ian. And I just wanted to come back to that last point and really just emphasize the value of choice, right? With legacy ECM platforms, you're pretty much going to be, your choices are going to be what that company produces themselves and a very small set of ecosystem partners. Your options and your capabilities and your choices here on the Microsoft stack in Office 365 are tremendous opportunities for you to quickly develop compelling solutions. So with that, I'm going to try and share my screen here. Let's see how this goes. So we're going to walk through a couple of demo scenarios and just to basically give you an idea of how information flows from Office 365 to SAP and back and forth, so forth. So we support a bidirectional integration. Information can originate in Office 365 or SAP, and we will manage it the same way regardless of the system of origination. In this example, we've designed an HR portal, and I realize that many of you may not be using SAP for HR, but the concepts that I'm going to describe to you now really are applicable to any SAP transaction or any SAP master data record. So please take comfort in that. So in this example, what we're going to do is we are going to add some documents. So this portal that you're looking at is obviously been enhanced with some Gimel tools around adoption and usability. But in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to allow a user to easily drag and drop a document into Office 365 and have that document associated with SAP. So we'll use a drop zone here, a Gimel drop zone. And this drop zone, for anyone familiar with ECM strategy, you really want to reduce the amount of information that the end user is responsible for. So in this case, we're just asking for a content type, and we're asking for that single unique key, which is the HR record number, to allow us to associate this content with the SAP transaction. Now, behind the scenes, we're registering this document as an archive link document in SAP, but we're also pulling back additional metadata from SAP, applying that to the Office 365 document, and using that information to route the document to a specific library or document center in Office 365. So we'll see the Personal Information tab was just updated with one new document here. And as we browse into this particular library, we'll see the one document we just added, and we can see the metadata that we've pulled back from SAP, including the personnel name, the company code, and so forth. And again, this is information that's stored in Office 365 as native content. So you can see here anything that's prefaced with SAP, we've named it that way for clarity, but you've also got non-SAP information here, which can do things like set security and classification and so forth. Of course, ECM projects usually involve some sort of records management aspect, so we can manage the life cycle of this content as well using a variety of tools, all the way up to DoD compliance if that's a need of yours. So what's happened now is we'll jump over to SAP and see what it looks like to the SAP user. So jumping over to SAP and to that HR record, you'll see that, I'm sorry, I had a bit of buffering there, but you'll see that in the standard SAP attachment list, you'll see the one document that we just added from from Office 365, and the SAP user can access this document as they do today. It's important to stress that there is zero change management on the SAP side. SAP users continue to add content and access content the same way they do today as we manage this content as an archive link compliant solution. We're going to jump back over to Office 365 now, and we'll talk a little bit about different ways to get content into the system. And in this example, I'm going to touch on Flow, right? So those of you who aren't familiar with Microsoft Flow, it's a great new platform to build out processes and integrate systems. There's over 140 connectors, I believe, available today, including OneDrive, Box, Salesforce, etc. And in this example, what we're just going to do is we're going to drag this document into a OneDrive folder, And Flow is going to pick up that document because it's monitoring that OneDrive for Business folder, and it is going to automatically send an email to an HR professional to classify this document. So the user will go to Office 365, they'll click on that email, they then have the ability to view that document, and you'll see on the right-hand side the user has a couple of easy options provided by the Flow integration to classify this document. They can link it as a resume, they can link it as a training certificate, or they can decide not to send this to SAP at all, or send it to HR. So once they click on the link to resume, what's happened behind the scenes is that document has been processed in much the same way as the drag and drop document we did in the drop zone. So that document has now been synchronized to SAP, made available to the SAP user, and filed in the correct location in Office 365. So we'll go back to our portal here, and we'll see that in this document was routed as a career management document. You will have seen that increment to 25 documents in career management. Opening up the career management library, you'll see that this document was added, and you'll see again, even though it was brought in through Flow and OneDrive for Business, the document has all of these same earmarks of the document that we brought directly in through Office 365. So for instance, you'll see again information that has been brought in from SAP, as well as information using a variety of different techniques like inheritance, will help us manage the full life cycle of this document. We'll go through one more extensibility example, and that's people who live their day in Outlook, and I'm sure there's people on the call that do that. So what we'll do now is we'll talk about a partner technology of ours called Harmony, which gives you direct Outlook integration. And in this case, the user is working in Outlook, and they want to either store or access documents that are associated with SAP. In this case, they can browse to a drop-off library and just drag and drop a document into that library, and they'll be presented with prompts similar to what we saw again in that drop zone portion of the demonstration. And again, they're just asked for the personal information number, personnel number, which allows us to tie that to the SAP transaction. Of course, they can do things like version control. But once they do that, we'll jump back to the portal, and we'll see that this also was a career management document. So the end user will just do a quick refresh on Office 365, and we'll see that the career management ticker goes up to 26 documents. And if we were to browse into that library again, of course, you'll see now 2 documents, the email that originated from OneDrive and the one that came in directly through Outlook. Now let's just jump over to SAP and take care of a couple more things, and then we'll wrap up the demonstration portion. So in this case, the SAP user wants to attach an additional document. Again, they're going to go to their standard attachment list. And of course, they have the ability to do everything that SAP allows them to do with attachments. They can add attachments, they can delete attachments, and so forth. So in this case, the user is going to create attach an additional resume. Again, we want the users to work in their application and preference. So that document's now been added and managed in Office 365, the same as the other documents. Let's do one more thing while we're here. One of the documents that we've uploaded was a personnel data change request. So the user, this employee wants to change the name on their employee record. So we'll go ahead and do that by editing this master data record. And we'll go to personal data. And we'll just modify the user's first and last name. And then, again, this works for any transaction or master data record. So we are event-driven out of SAP to allow the updates to Office 365 as metadata associated with transactions and master data records changes. We can update Office 365. So we'll just now jump back over to Office 365 and start to wrap up this presentation. So we've now got, the demonstration portion. We've now got the resume and the email that we saw before. We'll do a quick refresh, and you'll see that there are now 3 documents. Note that the personal name here, every document in the system that is associated with that employee will be updated to Sanjay Gupta, which was the changes we made to the HR record. And again, even though this last document, an SAP document, originated from SAP, it has all the same metadata as the documents that originated in Office 365. So I'll wrap up the demo portion and hand it over to Srikant now to talk to you about CHS's experience with GIML and Office 365. Srikant?
Thank you, Chris. So the CHS, right? So who are we? So let's talk a little bit about that. So we provide, we are primarily known as an ag company, but we do provide solutions in the energy space and also in the logistics space. So anything that you can think about from a consumption perspective, right? Soybean or anything like that typically we process that. That's something that we do. We also provide agronomy services and grain marketing and things like that. So, and you can read more about us on this slide. What's our current state? So we use a variety of document management systems today at CHS. We use WebDocs, we use Hummingbird, eDocs, we use DFS, which is a Microsoft product, it's a file sharing system. And then we use that for document repository, and like everybody else, we use SharePoint as well in the current state. The problem statement with our current state is there's no integration with any of our ERP systems. In some cases, we deployed screen scraping technologies to actually integrate our document management systems with our ERP systems. And there's challenges with user experience of having to flip over to 2 different screens, things like that. So our primary focus was how do we get a DMS system that's completely integrated with SAP. Users can stay in SAP and then view, attach, and consume documents. So our future state, we are rolling out GIML's ERP link, which has complete integration with SAP as our DMS solution. That's our go-forward strategy. And so why GIML, right? So a lot of what Ian and Chris talked about is relevant here. So just keep that in mind. But what we've not talked about is the solution is upgrade agnostic. So a lot of your traditional solutions, right, have an add-on on your SAP system, and as you upgrade your SAP systems, that upgrade itself, it brings in a lot of change management and a lot of planning. And when you add your DMS systems as an add-on to SAP, then the problem just keeps adding up. So we'll see some of the GIML's architecture in the next slide, but this is this GIML minimizes the problems that you may have with your upgrade process. And then, last but not least, most of us have some point of SharePoint presence in our environment, be it on-prem or be it O365. So that's why we thought, that GIML is a perfect fit for us. Okay, so why O365? So before we talk about why O365, you need to make sure that you have a good cloud strategy on how to adopt cloud solutions like O365. Make sure that your information security office is on board with documents and things being in cloud. So I just wanted to preface that with why we went with O365. So CHS, we operate lean on the IT side, And so why build something when it is readily available? And we were actually using O365, right? Like, when we caught the eye of Gimel. So we just wanted, to go with O365 as opposed to building on-prem SharePoint system. From a SAP backend system perspective, we have enterprise core components, which is also referred to as ECC, where your GL and all the financial data will reside, and a lot of core business processes will integrate with. And we also have Gimel and O365 integrated with our transportation management module. So if you look at the diagram, right, here, Gimel is just a middleware, right? And SAP is on the left, O365 is on the right. And although there is a certification process, as you upgrade your SAP systems, there is very minimal disruption to the upgrade process itself. And Gimel's Cloud Gateway exploits actually a core SAP functionality which has not changed in decades. So there will be very minimal impact from what we can see on the Gimel side. And so our architecture is as people are in SAP, as they attach documents, we communicate with Gimel's Cloud Gateway through load balancer for HA and DR purposes. And Gimel's Cloud Gateway goes through our firewall to Azure or the SharePoint Online O365 environment. The other part of the ECM solution for us, which has been painful in the past, was we have this process, in plants and offsites, where the trucks come in and they, drop off paperwork at guard shacks. They could be bill of lading numbers, or some notes, that the drivers make, things like that. And we have a process where we get all the paper into the office building, and then we scan this paper, and it went to a DMS system. Nobody had any visibility. Nobody knew, what to do with it, and it was not, integrated with the ERP system. As Chris demonstrated, we could actually turn this paper into a document and associate it back with a business object within SAP. So now the document is visible from SAP, and we can also have users view it outside of SAP. So what that means is you can minimize some of your SAP licensing requirements, because you don't need to have all your users who just want to view documents as SAP users. Okay, what's our future roadmap? Obviously, as we put things into SharePoint, we need to do some lifecycle management of documents that are there. We also need to put governance and records management on top of this one. So we are actually looking for some policy management, records management, and we also have some requirement of classifying some of our records. And Gimel has solution, for all those three aspects of it. So that's it from my side.
Thanks, Srikant.
Yep.
So let's move on to, one of the things that we promised you we'd talk about at the beginning of this, which was, how we can save you money and reduce your total cost of ownership, as well as improve the time to value that you're delivering to your business. So if we take a look at a traditional ECM project, and I realize, most SAP people aren't familiar with ECM projects, but these numbers came from Gartner. I can tell you they're actually quite conservative. But a few years ago, Gartner did a study on, what an ECM project or what your ECM strategy could be and what that might entail. And in this report, they basically laid out the cost that a traditional ECM project might encounter in the first year. So for a 1,000-user company, they might expect to spend $1 million on license, another 22% on maintenance, They might spend a couple $1 million implementing the solution. They're going to have to train administrators, train the users. They're going to have to buy infrastructure and so forth. And because this is such a big project, before they can even get it off the ground, they're probably going to have to spend a few $100,000 just on strategy and planning and building consensus in the organization that this project, can deliver the value that it's promising. Alternatively, if you look at Office 365 and using an add-on approach or an app model as Gimel does, our costs are significantly lower. On average, our customers may spend $50,000 to $80,000 a year on a subscription license. We can typically do a POC for maybe $20,000. Our initial implementations are quite inexpensive and leave you with the abilities to easily expand the solution out to other parts of your SAP business. Because this is on your SAP systems, and your Office 365 existing infrastructure, there's very little training, very little operational difference, and zero incremental hardware. In fact, most of our customers who deploy this solution never employ a person to specifically take care of the Gimel solution. Any additional requirements on configuration of the solution are typically easily absorbed by the existing SAP basis and Office 365 administrative teams. What that yields is an opportunity to come in and deliver the same solution at, as Ian said, as much as 10% of the cost or even less compared to traditional ECM platforms. So this will save you millions in year one. And by the way, again, those not familiar with ECM projects, it's very rare that you receive any value back in the first year of an ECM project because it takes a long time to implement. But you're also going to save money longer term as it will be easier to roll this out to additional departments. Now, talking about the time to value piece of this, when I talk about time to value, I like to talk about really 4 key factors. And that is, how long does it take to be operationally deployed? And that is, from the time that you select your technically preferred solution, getting all the way through contracting and design and implementation, to the time that your first live transaction goes in the system. Then how long does it take to achieve tangible business value? I would call this when your first department is onboarded and maybe you've decommissioned some legacy point applications in that department. Then how long does it take you to for the benefits of the solution that you've selected to actually exceed the cost and the upfront and ongoing investments? And lastly, how long does it take you to realize all the expected benefits that you told your CIO you were going to get when you sponsored this project into the organization, right? And you can see an app model approach on Office 365 compared to a typical proprietary ECM, which is often compounded when integrating to a major system like SAP. Our customers are typically deployed in 6 to 12 weeks. An ECM project integrated to SAP will typically take 6 to 12 months. Our first departments are onboarded in 3 to 6 months versus 12 to 15 months. Our customers typically break even in under a year versus a 4 to 5 year payback on a major ECM project. And the last one is really the clincher, right? Our customers, because of a much lower entry point, are able to do these projects at a much lower risk without promising extraordinary soft cost benefits that the business never realizes compared to ECM projects, which rely on those types of soft cost benefits to justify their high price tag. So if we look at that in terms of internal rate of return, as many CIOs and CFOs do, if you go back to those Gartner numbers and you're spending $4.2 million up front to get an SAP-related ECM project off the ground, as we discussed, you're not really going to get any benefit in the first year. In order to get a reasonable rate of return of maybe 10%, you're going to have to start stacking up benefits in the order of magnitude of $750,000 a year in year 2, $1.5 million in year 3, $2.25 million a year 4, and $3 million a year 5 to get that sort of return. Now, this project is fraught with risk every step of the way: changes in direction, acquisitions, divestitures, lack of adoption, lack of strategy. If you compare that, again, to this app model approach, you're able to enter at a very low price point. You're able to deliver very quickly and iteratively, and assuming that you get the same value, which we've shown you that Office 365 and SharePoint are main contenders for the ECM ring, right? The numbers become somewhat ridiculous, right? An internal rate of return of 550%, an ROI of 1,700%. But the important thing to note here is I'm not telling you you're going to get that $750,000 of value year on year, up to $3 million in year 5. I hope you do. But if you go down the ECM path, you better hope you do, because without that type of return on your ECM project, this project will be a failure. So we offer a much lower risk, much shorter time to value solution to solve your SAP ECM projects. And then lastly, what about existing customers? Maybe you've already invested in this ECM. As we talked about previously, legacy ECM maintenance costs, just the license maintenance alone, as well as the operations, can run $500,000 a year. This doesn't include things like, increases in annual maintenance, associated licensing fees for things like the database, the storage, custom development costs, major upgrades, which could all distort this or make this differential even greater. With the Gimel solution, you can easily decommission that legacy SAP ECM strategy and save easily a couple $1 million over a 5-year period. And in fact, the longer you keep that legacy ECM running, the longer you're spending money that you don't have to. So in summary, what have we talked about today? We've really talked about that the 5 situations that we're helping our customers with. First of all, SAP is not a document management system. Even SAP will tell you that, right? That's why they promote an ECM product as well. It really gives you better control of your documents. SAP is a siloed repository. Documents stored in SAP are locked away, and that value can't be extracted. Whereas if you move those documents to Office 365, you have much broader access and greater value on that content. SAP is an expensive and complex development environment. Office 365 and the Microsoft ecosystem provide a much lower cost and much more varied and wide set of capabilities to build your future solution and architecture on. Legacy ECM platforms, again, are expensive compared to an Office 365 strategy, and we can help you with that. And lastly, if you're considering that move to HANA as a database, whether it be your legacy ECC platform or considering a greenfield S4 HANA solution, you really need to have your content management and archiving in place before you do that project. And the reason customers, again, come to Gimel and Microsoft is that they recognize Microsoft as a strategic investment that they've invested in for years and a very capable platform. They recognize that platform is already widely deployed in their organization for content management and collaboration. It becomes very cost effective. Microsoft has a cloud and mobile-ready strategy, which is second to none in the industry. And again, we've talked a few times about the extensibility of the platform through Microsoft tools themselves and ecosystem partners. So with that, we'll open it up. We've got about 5 minutes left here, and we'll take some questions. I'll take the first one, and then if someone, maybe Susan, you could, or Ian, you could go through some other questions. But the first question that was pointed out to me was, does this solution also handle data archiving? And the answer to that is yes. So we are a fully certified archive link compliant solution, which means you can not only do document archiving, and by the way, when I say document archiving, that includes DMS and DMS originals and KPro, really all of the standard approaches for attaching documents to SAP. But we also do support data archiving via the SARA transaction. In fact, we have some very large customers like Monsanto and Siemens PLM managing their ADK files in SharePoint with the Gimel solution. Any other questions?
So there's a question that I see that was submitted asking, does Office 365 offer physical location-based access for regulations such as EU dual use and ITAR? Yes, we do have the ability to run in different physical locations. We have actually more locations around the world with the Azure cloud, the Microsoft cloud, than any of the other cloud providers, and we run, I think, in something like 30 different regions now. So yes, absolutely, we can do physical location-based access and support EU dual use and ITAR and so forth with Office 365 and SharePoint. So mark that one as answered.
I answered some of these before, but does the solution support S4HANA? Absolutely, it does. There's no change in the archive link standard for S4HANA. There was also a question about architecture. Realistically, all we need to run our solution, as Srikant pointed out, is an IIS server. Now, Srikant had obviously some redundancy and high availability built into his architecture chart, but really a couple of IIS servers is all you need to integrate SAP to Office 365, and those servers can live anywhere. They can live on-premise next to your SAP instance. They can live in Azure, really, as long as we have the connection, the open ports between the systems. It's a very lightweight architecture, and again, can be aligned with wherever you want these documents or these applications to live.
Chris, I see one.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I see one. Is a migration from Jive to Microsoft SharePoint supported? Yes, absolutely. We have many customers who have moved from Jive to SharePoint. That's not something that we provide as a no-cost fast-track migration today. Fast-track today does no-cost migrations from file shares, SharePoint, older versions, of course, Box, and Google Drive. But absolutely, we support migration from Jive. You work through your Microsoft rep on that. We are a consulting team or a partner can help you with that as well. So absolutely, though, you can definitely move to SharePoint.
Okay, I have another question here that says, does the solution offer functionality to integrate with SAP reports? So obviously I showed you examples where documents were manually being added to the system. Most print features in SAP, including documents that SAP produces, like AR documents, have a print and archive option, right? And when you configure something to print and archive as opposed to just print, you're configuring a content repository which would print those or push those reports to our repository, and again, we would pull relevant metadata and we would file those reports in Office 365 intelligently based on that metadata that's associated with the report. So I believe we do support the scenario that's you're asking about there, but if you want to follow up with a specific report, we can answer that after the conference. So I'm not seeing any other questions at the moment, so I think we're right on time. I want to thank everyone for your attendance, and I think Susan has a couple of moments to talk to you about ASUG briefly.
Yep, and thank you, everyone. This is Ian. Appreciate everyone spending their time with us today. I put our contact information up, Chris, so for folks that need to follow up with you on different capabilities of GIML or with me on different things that we do from the Microsoft side with SharePoint, or want to reach out and get connected with Srikant as well, I put that up just for everybody's benefit here. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you, Chris, Ian, and Srikant for a great webcast. I'd just like to share some information on ASUG for anyone unfamiliar with our organization. ASUG helps connect SAP customers to the people and information that provide the insight, influence, and inspiration they need to maximize the return on their investment in SAP and drive innovation at their organizations. We offer 38 chapters and 90 special interest groups and access to digital content like this webinar. If you'd like more information on how to join ASUG, please feel free to message memberservices@asug.com. Or if you're not a member and you'd like more information on how to become a member, please reach out to info@asug.com for more information. And on behalf of ASUG, I'd like to thank GIML as well as all of you who took the time out of today to join us. This recording and the slides from today's program will be posted to the ASUG website, and all registrants will receive an email with the link to those materials. With that, I would like to close today's webcast. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.